So for my art journal, I use a Moleskine art sketchbook. I really like it just because the pages are thick, and for collage art, I need thick pages. It's $20, which isn't horrible, just because it takes a while to go through one journal. So for bullet journaling, I actually just got into bullet journaling, but I got two of these. I don't know how to say the brand name, but I got two of them for $14 on Amazon. I'm gonna link everything below. I really like these. The pages are really thick as well. So jumping into supplies that I use, just a disclaimer, you're gonna see my nails up close and they're really ugly because I bite them, so please just ignore that. Also, any of the prices that I'm listing are just ones I found online. If you find or know of better prices, let us know in the comments. So another tool that I get asked about a lot is my circle cutter from Fiskars America. It's not my favorite, it's just kind of finicky, but I've linked it below anyway in case you want to check it out. Also just want to add in that these next two items are both from the Dollar Tree, so just want to say you don't need expensive items to journal. Okay, I'm in the car, I'm not driving, I'm just sitting in the driveway. But we're gonna go look for some scrap papers, some books from the thrift store. Usually I go to Goodwill. It's usually super cheap, so that's the whole goal when it comes to journaling. I don't like to buy expensive stuff. I always get the cheapest stuff, so let's see if it works. Thrifting books from Goodwill or whatever thrift store you have around your house is such a great way to find journaling supplies for cheap. All of these books that I found, everything you see me pull off the shelf, I bought, and it cost me $10, and they would have originally cost individually probably like $30 a piece, just because they're nice hardcover books. So I hope that from this you can see how I thrift. You kind of just have to look through all the books and find ones that have a lot of pictures in them, so you can usually tell if it's gonna have pictures or not. Everything that I found during this trip to the thrift store, I will be showing you later on how I pull scraps and pictures from these books. So I just wanted to throw that in there. I know I'm not showing them well right now, but you'll see them in a little while. So I hope you kind of have a bigger grasp on, or I guess a better grasp on, how I thrift for like journaling supplies. I basically just like browse through the aisles for like a long time. Like I sit there and look at every single book. As you can see, I found some really good books. I'm going to show you how I use them when I get home. I hope this helped you. Hopefully. Now it's time to get into how I art journal. I want to preface this by saying finding pictures online, you have to be really careful because you don't want to take other people's artwork or credit for their photos. So I use unsplash.com. It's a website full of free images. I find some really great images. You just have to know how to search for them, and I'm going to show you right here. Pinterest can be a little tricky because those are not free photos most of the time. So just be really careful because you don't want to take other people's work. I started off this spread by searching for pictures on unsplash.com. If you aren't sure what type of pictures you want in your journal, go to the explore page on Unsplash and just search through some of the pictures on there and you'll probably find some inspiration. I went with a tan texture picture and also paper texture for layering purposes. Another thing I'll do sometimes is if the picture that I found doesn't necessarily match my color scheme or my aesthetic of the spread that I'm doing, I'll change up the coloring in Word a little bit just so it matches a little better. So as you can see here, I typed in aesthetic portrait and some palm trees came up, so I went with that. But sometimes I'll type in just the word aesthetic or moody photos or film photography, stuff like that. Gives you those more Tumblr looking photos that I feel like a lot of people, including me, are looking for. So one thing that I do all the time is go on Google and type in tape PNG. This will come up with a bunch of different tapes with a transparent background, and I'll usually just print those tapes out and just cut them out and kind of crinkle them up so that they look like actual tapes. Another thing that I search is Polaroid PNG. This comes up with a Polaroid frame with nothing in the middle. And then I'll go onto Unsplash and find a picture that I like and create my own little Polaroid. Something else that I do is save any scrap paper. So I know it looks like a lot of white space and wasted paper, but I save every single piece of it to use in a later spread, and it's great for layering, so I highly recommend doing that. One way I get a vintage look to some of my pictures is by giving them a ripped edge and also folding them backwards and forwards a few times just to give them a more worn-in seam. Something to note about this part of the video is please be careful if you're using an X-Acto knife. I've almost cut my finger off like 10 times and it's not good. So I also need a better cutting board. I'm using the back of a book, so don't mention it. This probably doesn't need to be said, but here you'll see I'm using all of the books that I got from the thrift store, and usually I'll just flip through the pages to see what pictures or words that I really want in my journal. One thing that's really great about thrifted books is that you don't have to just use the pictures. As you'll see here, I found this black kind of glossy paper in the National Geographic book and I really liked it, so I folded it at the seams and I think it looked really good. Another great use for thrifted books is to find little scrap papers for layering. I'm going to show you how I layer in a second, but here I'm just taking some musical notes out of a thrifted book. I also went into my garden almanac, which was kind of hard to do because it's just so beautiful, and just took some of the writing out of it for layering. I liked the little bottom part of it with the little flower on it. I thought it was super cute, so that is another thing I'll do with thrifted books, is find pieces for layering. Also, just a side note, I am using my bullet journal for this video because my moleskin is too fat and it won't lay flat, so just wanted to say that. Now it is time to start layering and arranging our pictures on the page. So I get questions all the time about how to layer, and it's a little difficult to explain because it's really just kind of moving stuff around and doing what you think looks good. But one tip is to layer different colors of papers or textures of papers. So if you have a folded paper and then maybe a ripped paper. Another tip is try not to layer the papers perfectly parallel to each other. So you might not want to lay a flat edge right next to a flat edge, but maybe offset it a little bit to give it more of that layering look. Another tip that I have learned the hard way is to take a picture once I've arranged all of my images on the page, just so that I remember how I had it when I'm gluing it down. So one of the most useful things that I've learned throughout the years of journaling is to use a flat edge, so either like a Chick-fil-A gift card like I'm using, or like a paint mixer, to smooth out your pages after you glue them down. Make sure you do this as soon as you glue them so that you get all those crinkles or little glue spots out of the way. So as you can see here, I'm just gluing down my papers, and something that I wanted to mention is that if you don't have enough room, like in this palm tree picture, it just wasn't working the way I wanted to. The layering didn't look good, so you can always just rip your papers to make them a little smaller. So this looks much better than if I hadn't ripped it. Another tip is to smooth out any chunks of glue. That sounds really gross, but if I don't smooth those out and there's like little dots of glue, then even if you use the flat edge, it's not going to go away and it's going to show. As you'll see here, I am using my beloved masking tape that is so cheap, and I just think it looks so good. I don't know about you, but I like to just put it like randomly across my pictures, or take little tiny pieces and kind of stick them to the top of images to make it look like I stuck the images with the tape. So yeah, I really like to do that. My next tip is to take kind of bigger images. So this one's kind of long and it goes across both pages. I like to cut them or rip them in half and then put one on each side, so it kind of connects the entire spread together. So it looks kind of like cohesive, if that makes sense. I was debating if I should just take this whole part out, but then I was like, no, I need to show that I mess up all the time. So I cut this little girly out, and let me just tell you, it just didn't look good. Like, it just looked weird, like I cut off half of her head. So I decided to find a different picture, and I think it turned out really good anyway. So it's okay if you mess up, you can improvise. I mess up all the time, and life goes on, it's totally fine. So just improvise as you're going, and yeah. Moving on to step 3, I like to add small details, and something that I would highly encourage you to do is add the date that you're making your spread, and maybe write a small snippet about your day or something you're struggling with, or even like a small victory. And I just think it's so special to be able to go back and look at your growth over time, not only with your writing or with what's going on in your life, but with your journaling style. So I highly recommend. Another thing that I like to do is add like some paint streaks to my journal, but if you're a more highly experienced painter than me, you can actually paint in your journal. I mean, I do sometimes, but I really just like adding these little streaks to make it look more messy. My last and final step is to add some doodles and writing like I just talked about. Here I'm going to show you a few different plant doodles and aesthetic doodles, if you will. I am sorry if you can't really see all that well. I'm left-handed and it's really hard to get the right angle for drawing up close and showing how I write or how I doodle, but I think it's good enough, so just bear with me and maybe I'll figure that out one day. Here is the final spread. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'd really appreciate it if you liked and subscribed, and I'll see you in the next video.